First, I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to do this a little bit differently than we've done in the past because we're going to go through the Sandcastle renovation and additions first. It's a very preliminary update that you'll see, but it'll give you a sense of what we're looking at. And then we'll open for comments and questions about it, and then we'll go into our regular meeting. So anybody that is here mostly for this, we'll give a minute or two to leave if you don't want to stay for the whole meeting, but I would love to have everybody stay for the rest of the meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to Jimmy to introduce the folks that are here, and then after this we'll open it up for comments and questions, and then we'll go into the regular meeting.
Thank you very much, Dave, and as you can see, we're bringing in a few more chairs, so just bear with us if you don't have a place to sit quite yet. I do want to make a comment that we are providing access to this meeting to folks who couldn't be here in person. We are both live streaming this meeting on the internet as well as have a call-in function here, so folks are listening on the phone. I don't know if anyone is tuned in to the live stream, but just a big giant disclaimer for the benefit of our IT staff that the live stream is completely dependent on the technology working here at the Sandcastle also as well as at the end user site. So there is a backup to that. If for some reason the technology fails us, we are recording this in HD and we'll post it online so people can at least view it later. I do want to just before I introduce Eddie Bello, who is the architect working with us on this project, I just want to make a couple comments. He and Ian, who is with Seaman Whiteside, sent us some images over the weekend, so we've seen a little bit of it, but a lot of what we're going to see today, we're seeing it for the first time as well. So when you make comments and ask questions, we may be able to answer some of them we may not, but once they're done with their presentation, I'll get up with the microphone and walk around the room to entertain your questions or comments.
And one of the reasons that we're showing something this preliminary is that at the rate we have meetings scheduled, and at the rate we would like to get this project completed so it's available for our usage without getting in the way of anybody's usage of the facility, it's a pretty tight, compressed time frame. So ideally, we would like to have had something a little bit more finished before we had a discussion. So that's just to give you a sense of why it's going on.
All right, well, I'm going to turn it over to Eddie Bello. Eddie has been practicing architecture in the Charleston area for, 20 years, I suppose. Many years at the City of Charleston, also many years in private practice, and we think that he brings a great skill set to this project. Excited to work with him. I'm going to turn it over to Eddie.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. Again, I'm excited to be here. Also with me is Ian Duncan with Seaman Whiteside Associates. He'll be speaking in a few minutes, and also from our firm, Rhett Morgan. I think the first thing I want to say, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be talking to this side or this side, so I'm just going to walk around a lot, which I'm not used to doing. I think the first thing to note is this is the very first initial ideas. Nothing's been decided. We do have a very aggressive schedule, so what we wanted to do was share our initial ideas with the board and with the community about what direction this project might take, because we've got to move very quickly. Obviously, once we are a little more formalized in our decisions, we'll come back with a more formal presentation with what might happen out here. So one of the first things I also want to say is this is a wonderful facility, as you know, Key West's beautiful place. We take what we do here very seriously. It's a great opportunity. We want to make sure we improve what's here. And lastly, this is going to be a super brief presentation. I think we're looking mostly to get your input and, of course, your input so that we know what to do as we move forward with our very aggressive schedule. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so there's a couple of things. There's some very specific site goals for this project. Number one, a much stronger visual connection to the ocean. There's been a strong desire to have more pool and deck area, an additional pool, and to think about how the deck and the pool will be used in a different way, different types of uses. And then I think everybody's aware that parking is an We only have limited space, but we do have some ways to at least make that more efficient and maybe get some more parking out of it. And Ian, did you want to talk about these? We've got...
Sure.
Snowstorm.
None of your slides came through. Hold on a second, I'm going to open up a different. I apologize. I'm going to open up a PDF.
So, and my name's Ian Duncan, by the way. I work with Seaman Whiteside in Mount Pleasant. My experience has been working on resort projects, the U.S. and abroad for the last about 15 years. So the best, I think, asset we have here is this incredible view, this incredible island. And, we've all kind of talked initially, the best thing we could do is just not screw it up, right? Just make this as beautiful as it is, sort of enhance it, but also make it more usable for you guys. So one of the biggest tasks, I think, was to improve the parking. And we have come up with a plan that'll show up here in a second, but we've increased the capacity of parking to 135 spaces, which brings the facility up to code and allows for 7,000 additional square feet of pool and deck. So that adds up to being a pretty substantially nice pool and deck complex oceanside, as well as some flex spaces on the periphery. Yeah, that's fine. So I think just here is the existing conditions. Like I said, we have an incredible view. We have inadequate parking. I think the entry experience is actually going to be improved just with some of our parking improvements. As far as the ecological impact, we are going to try to preserve, and our plan shows we're preserving all the large oaks in the parking lot for shade, which I think is huge for the entry experience, as well as keeping the parking lot cool. We're also going to try to replace some of these stalls with pervious paving, so we don't increase any water outfall onto the island or into the system, so we don't have any extra runoff or pipe capacity. So this again is a quick sketch of what we could have. You'll notice the parking has, some of the islands have been removed, but we've kept all the trees and we've increased the capacity substantially. Now going out there, I just noticed we have a few transformers in the way. We may lose one or two, but I think in all, the plan stands as it is. Again, we just wanted to show something pretty simple out there, but I know we want to make it elegant. So we thought bold, simple forms out there would allow for the most flexibility, as well as sort of preserving the pristine horizontal nature of this view. We want to preserve the dunes as much as possible and have them sort of, it's hard to see, but they sort of encroach on these lawn areas. I think it could be a really nice juxtaposition of a formal lawn and then having these beautiful dunes come and sort of intrude into them. Also, I know shade is an issue, so it's potential to have some shade sails. You can see on the lower lawn there. Those could be removed or put up, based on the season. We also want to provide sort of a different level of shade and different experiences on the same pool. So we have sort of umbrella shade, palm shade, under the canopy shade. Maybe we have a few lounges that have a bimini top. We would like to have the whole entry to the pool be a beach entry, which is just walk straight in, there's no steps. So that's good for, it's ADA compliant, it's easy on the legs, and also allows you to put some lounges in the pool so that you could sit in the water in your chair if you wanted to. We also are suggesting a couple of little seating pods out in the dunes that would just nestle in there and be sort of a private little deck for you to hang out in your little VIP personal deck. I think that pretty well explains the site plan. As Eddie was saying, it's very preliminary, but I think the bold, simple forms there work really well with the site. And we've got a couple other images that can show you what it might be like.
And a couple of things while we're looking at this. As Ian said, there's a few different areas. What we have, it's a little bit unusual. Again, we have this long pool, but we also have these lawn areas that could be used in a different way than just a place to put chairs. You could have outdoor yoga. You could have some type of ceremony there. Lots of different things can happen. We want to kind of have a multi-purpose use for that. A little different than what you have now. But the number one thing is, when you walk in on the ground floor, you will be able to see the ocean. That's the goal, which will be transformative. Beautiful building. Again, that kind of goes to what Ian was saying about the pool design. We want to see the view. We want it to be very elegant, very striking, but not something that takes your eyes off the ocean. For the building, it's not as sexy as Ian's stuff. The main thing with the building is just to make it a little more functional. There's some areas we've met with the staff that we need to improve upon. Entirely new finishes, update the whole building. It's a little bit dated, it's kind of time. And then we are going to add an exterior bar and some more restrooms that are a little more convenient. A changing room, which would be right over here off that deck. So again, not as exciting as Ian's project, but one of the key things that I've noticed every time I come here is the experience when you walk in is a little underwhelming. And so the idea would be we would open up that area. So just to orient you, this is the ground floor, or the first floor. We're on the floor above, right here. And so when you walk in, this is the entrance, a little hard to read, but we want to open that up and have it be, again, a more of a direct access and view to the ocean. And obviously, what's right below us now on the beach side is a storage maintenance office, which is not the best place for a front beach POI thing. So what would happen then is that we'd expand that room basically to this size, have glass doors. It would be very, very similar to what we have in this room. But you'd be at grade, you'd step out into the wonderful pool deck that Ian just showed you, and you'd see the ocean right from inside the building or without. And then another thing that we've added is up here, you know where the ping pong table is now in the swing courts? You got to find another place for the ping pong table, but that's where an exterior bar would go. So you can sit and have a drink and look at the beach. And it would be undercover, which would be nice, but you'd still be obviously outside. And then finally, number 5 down there at the bottom, we've got to design it, but somewhere over here, we want to have some additional restrooms and changing rooms just because it's a little more convenient than having to walk all the way up there. Upstairs, not a whole lot of major changes. I think the biggest thing for y'all is to think about how this space out here might be. Right now, we're thinking of it more as an active lounge. I mean, a lot of it's going to be how I handle the furniture, but we might have a TV in there. We've tossed out some ideas, so I think we want to hear it from y'all. But I know this is a very popular area. We don't want to change it too much, but we do think it can be improved upon. So upstairs, that's the main thing. There's a huge kitchen in there that's not used as much, so we're going to keep most of the fixtures, but we're going to rearrange it a little bit to add some much-needed storage. Every project I've ever worked on, everybody wants more storage. The first thing that they said here, so we've got to find that. And then, so that's the building, and so then we've got a few images of how the pool deck might look. Again, this is the sexy stuff. I could show you a photograph of the kitchen if you'd like to see that. But you see, the idea is very, very simple. We want to have the Ipe deck, very natural. We don't want it to be, we just want it to be natural.
One thing I wanted to just point out, so I think what I was trying to get at too, and it's hard to see, but these lawns, you know, this yoga lawn or Tai Chi, whatever, it could be awesome, but what we'd like to do is keep this dune and have it come right in there and really blend the natural with the built element. And I think that makes this whole move sort of enhance the natural forms.
Yeah. And again, this is going to be higher than the adjacent pool deck because it's at the floor level pool up. So there's a step down. We've got a ramp. We've got to figure out that, but it should be fairly simple to solve. And here's a view back from the beach. Again, very simple. Ian's got these rows of palmettos on either side to help define that view. And then the last one, again, this is more from sort of right over here, a little bit lower. But right now we've got the pool set up so that when you walk in, to look straight through the doors, there'd be a glass wall between that and the exercise room. You'd be able to put lines on that or whatever if we needed to, but most of the time it could be open and you'd see right out through this out to the ocean.
And that far edge, DHEC willing, will be a spillover tension edge. So from the lobby, you'll see this infinite connection between the pool and the ocean. I mean, it should be pretty stunning.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. So that's where we are. Again, this is just the first start, but I think that's it. Anything else?
I'm happy to walk around with the microphone. In fact, why don't we do 2 of them? These both on?
Okay,
That'd be great.
Jimmy, I was wondering if we consider going up, since there are buildings being built on Kiowa that are timbers is going to be 4.5 stories, if we consider improving the building by going up a floor. That's my first question. The second question is the parking. You said it's 135 spaces, the new parking. That's an increase of, what are we now?
Right, but the only issue is the current parking is inadequate under code. So we would have to bring that up to park what's here now.
He's asking the numbers.
Yeah,
How many do we have? How many will we
spaces?
I think we have 105, 107, we're taking up 135.
20 more spaces.
Correct.
25.
And that, I mean, that's pretty much the maximum we could do. You know, we could get 1 or 2 more if we kill some of those giant oaks, but I do not think that's an even trade at all.
And the square foot of the pool, are we losing pool space compared to what we have now?
The square footage of that deck and pool together is 7,000 square feet, which is actually predicated by the allowable parking.
Swimming area, how big is
The swimming area, that is 75, so it's 25-meter length by 32, which is 8 lanes.
And how-
I mean, I'm sorry,
what's
4
the
lanes
old-
at 8 feet.
What's the old area of the pool?
The existing, I'm not
Are we
1,000%.
losing pool square foot?
No, this is completely additional.
No, the old pool would stay.
Yeah, the old pool remains.
All of that
This is all
changes
additional.
over there.
Oh, the old pool stay?
Yeah.
Correct, so our thinking is this is sort of a more adult executive experience, and then that could be more for the,
Right, so the idea, sorry, that wasn't very clear. Everything over there, the old pool, the deck, none of that's changing.
And
We're going to have
considered
new,
going up.
what's,
Have we considered going up?
well,
Another story on the Sandcastle?
I think we did not. I don't know that we were tasked as much with finding that much more heated square footage. I mean, other than needing a lot of storage, that wasn't something that was part of what we were looking for. Also, obviously budget-wise, the biggest thing here is the pool. And then what we're doing to the building, other than the finishes, is relatively minor. It's not going to be super cheap, but another floor would be a significant change.
I guess I was asking because the Mahjong people don't have space, for meetings and that kind of stuff. That's what they tell me.
Well, I don't know how to answer that.
Sure. I think that it is, and I'll invite a board member to jump in if I get off track here, but I think the budget that was considered for this project was one that we could potentially fund without having to go out to the membership for an additional assessment or a vote. We will have some additional flexibility on meeting space once the town moves out of the town hall building that we purchased in October and November. And so we do expect to be able to take some of the pressure off of this facility for the smaller groups that could meet in some of the meeting rooms that are open.
Jimmy, I thought if you add more square foot, the parking becomes even a bigger problem.
Sorry, we can't hear back here.
Is this one working? This one's working.
The other, Rajan just also made the good point that if we were to go up a floor, that just creates more parking issues on top of the already difficult parking situation we have.
My question is on the fitness. That's what I come here for 5-6 days a week. And you were talking about our little area downstairs, opening it up, taking away that storage office area, which is fine. But then just having a bunch of windows looking out in the ocean. I mean, we are more interested in having a good workout rather than looking at the ocean.
Right. Well, and actually, there's also been concern that you don't want to have people walking in on this side looking while business is going on because people get distracted. We would handle that with window treatment. There are many ways that you can have these blinds that just come down. It can be semi-transparent, it can be very opaque. We've got to work through that, but we have an interior designer that's going to help us figure some of that out. But we can, the short answer is we can control that.
Okay, will the area downstairs that we use now for our fitness classes, will that be larger then? Will that be expanded?
It will be, right. Think about how big it is now, plus whatever the distance is below us to expand. So it just gets bigger. You can see. Okay, so see 3 and 2 right there, that's the exercise room. See 3 and 2 up there? And so it just basically it picks up this much. It's as big as the room we're in now, right there. So it expands, and then we can control, if you want it to be completely dark in there, we can handle that with the window treatments. Yes.
Really, you have to wait for the microphone.
Since you're going to have increased parking, will there be any regulation or anything as far as renters coming in? Will there be a gate going up for members? Issues like that, because I know in the summertime it's really crazy here.
To get into the parking lot, there'd be a
Correct.
gate.
Yes, exactly.
We hadn't talked about that. Is that something?
Well, it's a big concern for a lot of members.
Sure.
Why don't, I'll take that one, and then why don't we try to go with like architecture, use of the building comments, and then we'll switch them over to those. You know, renters don't have access to the facility now. They won't have access to the facility in the future. I'm looking back there at Tony Elder, our security director. If it becomes a problem, we will ask Tony to weigh in on that, on the best way to control that.
Jimmy, I think that's
And one thing, in terms of access, I didn't point out, we have thought about eliminating the connection from the beach into the Sandcastle facility from that side. So anyone coming in from the beach right now, what we're thinking would only be able to come in from this one right here, so that the access is controlled a little better.
What now? What is that?
Right now, you can walk off the beach and then come right over here and wash your feet off and everything right here from the boardwalk to the beach. The boardwalk instead. We're just not going to be able to connect. So if you want to come, if you're at the beach and you want to come to the Sandcastle, you would come just to this one point instead of these two. We're going to close that one. Just to control. That was one of the things we heard. Well, at least it gets one of them out. So I don't think we can close that one. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering about the compatibility of this with future improvements to Sandcastle. I'm sorry, I'm over here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. I'm sorry, say that
You know,
again.
there have been other plans discussed in past years, and I'm wondering, for example, other plans have included moving the food facility further to the beach. And I'm wondering, I would like to believe that what we do now is compatible with other things that might happen in, say, a phase 2 or a phase 3, something like that. And I'm wondering about food facilities, I'm wondering about the bar placement, and I'm wondering how that all might fit together with a more grand plan.
Well, I think right now the plan is to keep the existing facilities, the kitchen that's there now, the sort of snack bar kitchen, because it's more than sufficient, from what we understand, to serve both pools. Long term, we haven't talked about another phase. For example, of adding additional structures. I think, again, it's been limited a lot by what we can do for the budget. That's one of the reasons where the bar is we've already got structure there, and so it's not going to be very, very expensive to create a space there, nearly as much as it would be to put another structure somewhere. Also, we don't want another structure necessarily to block your view, so we're sort of working both sides of that. But I would say what we're doing is compatible with the building because in the next phase, because we're pretty much limiting ourselves in the scope. We're not doing anything that would prevent us from doing something else later.
Sandy, is that?
Yeah, will the new pool be heated for those of us that like year-round swimming or water rules?
I don't think we've made that decision yet, so I think we'll just note
It's
that.
it's a big demand.
Yeah, all right.
All in favor?
Take that. Two? I got two on that. Okay. I can't remember, is this one heated? No. That's what I think, I thought so.
Going along with that, I'm over here.
Yes, ma'am.
A hot tub, I didn't see it on the plans.
That's,
like it.
Well, again, I guess duly noted is what we'll say.
Wendy?
This is all very interesting. One of the things that does concern me, however, was your talk about intruding into the dunes. We just had a meeting on this island 2 weeks ago where a huge number of property owners expressed their concerns about violating dunes on another part of the island. And I would hate to see KICA be guilty of the same thing that we're concerned about now.
Right, I completely agree with that. I think this has been studied for many years, going this way into the small maritime forest here. And we've met with the ARB, and there's been a sort of a long-standing plan developed for how far is appropriate, where we go to the natural sort of dune line. I remember meeting with the naturalists out here, and there's a path that the animals use to go back and forth, and the idea is that we would respect that. So we're not mowing anything down. We would be cutting these trees, but we're not going to level the.
Then I misunderstood, because I thought you talked about seeding in the dunes.
Well, I think it would be these little pods, similar to kind of some of the things that are out there now. So if you look, that's what we're talking about. Where there's not a dune, but there might be an open area. Obviously, we need to work out where that is.
Let me just make one additional comment on that. There are two lines out there. There's a state line, which is much further out. And then there's an agreed upon line between the ARB and anyone that wants to build seaward of the building. And it's significantly further landward than what you're really allowed to do. So there's a balance there, obviously. Some could disagree with that judgment, but we're not proposing to go nearly as far as what we would legally be allowed to go.
That's right. And one of the things is this, from a little bit beyond where we are now, is a high velocity flood zone, which we be building a pool in a flood zone, a B zone, which is not unheard of. But there are certain guidelines that you have to follow, and one of those is you want to turn the pool in a certain direction that works better when the wave action comes in. So that's why it's why it's turned the way it is. One of the reasons why it's turned the way it is instead of the other way. Yes, sir.
I have a question about the openness on the pool side. You said that people will be able to move from the deck and the pool directly into the beach. There are people on Kiowa besides property owners, and is there going to be any barrier? Right now there is a gate to get into the Sandcastle. Have you thought about what sort of entryway you would have to limit access from the beach?
Well, yes, sir. I think right now, if you look where, I don't know if you can see this, but I believe this is the gate that's there now, from the boardwalk to the beach.
Yes.
Right now, and again, this is why we're here. Right now, we're not changing that. So that would be a gated way to get in. I guess you have to show a band. I'm not sure how that works. This one, which is over there, where you come in, that one, the boardwalk would stay, but that connection to the Sandcastle would not occur anymore. So if you're coming from the beach, and again, I heard someone say you're not supposed to do that anyway, but this is the only point from the beach that you could access the Sandcastle facility, that one existing spot. Is that right?
If there's a pool here,
Yes.
what prevents people from coming into the pool there?
Well, I don't know that I have an answer for that. Unless you want a wall or something.
Well,
I can get someone to build that wall for you. But we will have to have a fence.
yeah, we do by FEMA code or by DHEC code have to have a 4-foot fence around the entire pool perimeter. And our plan is to bury that in a bit of a ravine so that you don't see it, but it will be a 4-foot physical barrier, as well as there's a lot of dunes between the pool edge and the beach still that will be vegetated, and I mean, sure, someone could, you know, bushwhack through there, but it's probably not going to be your average person.
Marilyn, you're next.
I wanted to go to a different issue which hasn't perhaps garnered anybody's attention, and that is the current facility is quite unfriendly to anyone who has accessibility needs, and particularly when you're talking about channeling people through the existing pool area to get to the other pool area, or even like getting in the front door of this facility. When you're doing a revision, I would hope that you and the board would see fit to address those issues so that people with accessibility issues can actually access the facilities to which they belong. Thank you.
Well, I think that's a really good point. And we have already started thinking about that because that's one of the first things we do because you've got to figure that out now. You can't, that has to be part of the plan. One of the things is that this was a ramp to again, the existing pool's here that will be basically the primary access for everyone. It'll be an ADA ramp. It also will be a clear access for everybody. Now here, we are trying to think about how this could be better, much more easily accessible. Now it's a little bit of a roundabout way to get to the front door. That's what I mean. Well,
Accessible manner, please.
we already have a note to make those ADA where you push a button. That's something we will do.
Thank you.
Sir?
I just wanted to indicate that I think your proposal at this early stage really optimizes the existing facility quite well. Since I'm sleeping with someone every night that uses that fitness area, I'm compelled to offer a level of support for those in the room that do the same, that the fitness area is really a hidden jewel in terms of the opportunity for more to take advantage of that, especially with your improvements. So please tell her that now that I did that. As it relates to the height question, the existing zoning only allows for 2 habitable floors. So it would require rezoning to accomplish this. As you indicated, the additional parking is really
That's the driver.
And the comment about intrusion in the dune, if I'm interpreting the early drawing correctly, this is consistent with the pool at the Sanctuary Hotel and the one at the Kiowa Beach, Kiowa Mountain Beach Club. There are those rare opportunities along a 10-mile beach where there's so many people accessing the beach and the area that there is a modest level of relief of how closely certain things can get to the beach, and this honors that. But I think this is a great start.
Thank you.
Did I understand you correctly, I'm over here, that there will be a path from the pool to the beach that would have no steps?
No, I don't know that I said that. There's an existing boardwalk.
I'm not talking about I'm talking about the new pool. I thought I heard you say that there would be a no-step access to the beach.
No, that was a no-step access into the pool.
Into the pool.
Yes, ma'am.
So the pool will be above the level of the beach.
Yes, the pool will be at the same, just a little bit below the floor level. Think about
No, that was my concern.
step in.
That was my concern. Thank you.
That's right.
I just have a quick question. As we sit in this room here, every time I'm in it, I always notice, you have this view, but you have so much interruption because of the way that it was built. The smaller windows are not very high. You've got the posts. Is it just beyond the realm of budgeting to try to open this up at all?
You mean more glass and less?
Yeah, more glass, higher, because the view is so spectacular, but it looks like what you're going to do downstairs is going to be very, very open.
Well, I think we need to look at that. I mean, obviously, it all comes down to cost, I hate to say it. We've got columns in here that have to hold things up, so it'd be great to put a nano wall right here. That's just, if y'all are familiar with that, it's just a solid glass and you just open it up, and that's about $80,000 just for one of those. So I'd love to do that, but I think we're still in the early stages. We know at the very least we want to take the language that is already here and it just makes sense. You're going to look back at this building and it all work together. So if you change one, you kind of have to change them all. So right now, we're starting with just matching what's here downstairs. It may be, once we get into it, that it would make more sense to somehow come up with a 3-door, they could all slide, I don't know, we could look at that. But that's I hate to say that's really a cost. I'd love to do it, but front beach, as you know, anything in our area has to meet our hurricane codes and our impact resistance and all that stuff, and so it just drives up the cost, especially for the margin. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question relative to coordination between amenities on the island with what the resort is going to do. I know that there are plans that the resort is going to do things where the old straw market is currently, and that sort of thing. What I'm wondering is, right now, there is so little, period, on this island. You know, there's the beach club, there's the Sandcastle, and that's about it that's accessible from the beach. Having been, for example, down to Hilton Head, I'm aware of the fantastic opportunity that people on the beach have to go to a lovely facility, which of course is owned by the same people who own the resort here. And I'm wondering whether anyone knows whether there is something like that in the works that would take some of the stress from the Sandcastle, which people see as a potential thing when they come in as renters, and then they can't access it and they get irritated. And I understand, because it's a beautiful beach, etc. So, you know, as we plan and we think, it would certainly behoove us to be aware of other things so that we have our eyes open, let's say.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Honestly, I'm not aware, because we've been focusing on this building. We've talked to the users of this building, and that's where we've gotten most of our initial ideas. I think we would look into that and work with the board, and Jimmy, I'm sure, knows a lot more than I do about it, but yeah, I think that makes good sense.
You know, a number of you have heard the presentation that Roger Warren from the resort made a month or two ago, and one of the few things in that presentation that he did not commit to is exactly what's going to happen down here at the old inn site. But I think most of us would have to believe that when they do develop that incredible oceanfront site, that there's going to be some connection to the ocean with a pool experience, a bar experience, what have you. I will note that in that presentation, he asked you all to take a straw vote on which you liked more, the Sun Dancer or the whatever the other one was called. He was dropping some serious hints there, but was non-committal on exactly what might happen. But certainly we're in discussions with the resorts as to what their reinvestment plans are.
I have a question about the locker room facilities, which are woefully inadequate right now. I see on the plan that there are some new restroom facilities, but there's really not are you going to improve the other locker room area or make it a place that someone would actually want to shower?
Well, and actually, we've heard that a good bit, not that way, but that the existing facilities are in need of an upgrade. We have not included that in the scope. Again, I hate to keep saying budget, but that's something we haven't brought into, but it is the budget. I think all I can say is we've heard that. The idea is obviously adding new ones is going to alleviate some of that, at least on this side, if you're in the sort of the adult pool. But I think that's more of a phase 2 type of thing. At least right now, maybe not. I guess we'll have to see how it goes.
Terry? That was my comment as well, in terms of locker room facilities. You really don't have any, and if you're building out new restrooms on that other side, maybe you could make it a nice locker room facility as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to space, a lot of that, but at the very least, we want to have a place where you can sit and change and shower off kind of thing. I don't know how many stalls we can have for that, but but it's obviously noted that it's needed.
I wanted to ask a question. You've mentioned a couple of times budget being the issue, and I...
Yes, thank you.
You've mentioned the budget issues, and I know that what was announced was that there wouldn't be a vote because there wouldn't be an assessment. But when you listen to some of the ideas that have been mentioned here today that would be in addition to what you've identified, I wonder if the board is open to thinking about the possibility of doing more at this time. I know we had, the whole amenities thing a couple of years ago, but with a moderate assessment, we might be able to do many more of the things that people are talking about. I just worry that we're being short-sighted and that we're still stinging from the controversy of a couple of years ago.
Well, obviously I can't answer that one, but like this guy. I will say, yes, you've asked about a lot of things that we are not sure we can do, but I don't want to forget what we are doing. I mean, the inside of this will be completely different in how it feels. And I know it's not the same as building a whole new restroom and new restrooms, but it will feel like a new facility. And obviously, the pool, what we're thinking about here is going to be a transformative move for how this building connects to the ocean. So that is going to be, yes, it's not everything, but that's going to be a lot. So again, I can't answer the other question, so that's I have to defer to the board.
Nancy?
Two questions. Where the grill is now, which from hearing you, it's going to stay there. And correct me if I'm wrong, but that is used primarily in certain seasons, and then it's dead for the other seasons. Is there any way to enclose that or do something so that it could become a fitness area in the seasons when it's not a grill?
Are you talking about the open air pavilion right next to the parking lot there?
Yeah, we call it the grill.
I didn't know it was called the grill. I don't know. I think we can look at that. I think we need to. That's a good idea. So we need to look at that.
Yes.
Well, yes, we need to look into that. I have not had that as a suggestion, so
Oh, good.
it'll be good.
I have a second since I have the microphone. Some of us are more intimately involved with that kitchen than others. And you said that what you're addressing is to give more storage space. Does everybody, including the caterers, feel that that kitchen is well designed and big enough to provide what they want to provide?
Yes. If you're familiar with it, you know how large it is. It's actually larger than a lot of commercial kitchens downtown for restaurants.
The spaces.
It is. So it's not as efficient. And so we thought going into it, we can just eliminate all the, once we talked to the staff, we're not going to take out any equipment. We're actually going to keep the majority of the equipment and we're just going to rearrange it and make it a little more efficient use of space, and then take that extra space we have and give it to some of the needed storage. So the idea is it's not going to be any less useful as it is now. It's just going to be a better laid out space.
Yeah, you had mentioned a little bit about parking. I'm here probably every day of every week of the entire year, more or less. Most people know that if you come to the front gate and you say, I want to go get a t-shirt down at the ocean course, a third of the parking that actually is out here gets swallowed up by people who aren't even allowed on Kilo. And that happens every day. And I know Tony's working on some ideas of how to prevent that, but one thing comes to mind is a rocker arm. If you don't have a Kiowa sticker somewhere out there and to the left, wherever you choose, including the overflow parking, that would stop a lot of the people doing that, getting a t-shirt, and 30% of them walking down the gate that is its side. The other option might be just to close this gate off, where those folks, it's quite a few if you go out on the beach most days, can't even plop right out here, and it would force them to come through some secure access to even have any access to this beach. But that's going to have to be addressed because Seabrook is almost like Fort Knox to try to get in, and we leak like a sieve. And that's going to have to be addressed. And maybe there's some options to address this parking from this 30 or 40% that occupies those during the day that shouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think we need to look at if we want to, and that, again, that's a little beyond sort of our directive, but look into, do we want to control that vehicular access point? That's a
maybe in concert with some of the things that Tony's looking at too.
Sure.
I wanted to reiterate my question, and I appreciate your effort to answer, but I really think my question was directed to Mr. Bailey and to board members. Could they make some comment in response to where we stand with that? And just to remind you, I was the one that was saying, are we turning a blind eye to the possibility of an assessment, or are we open to considering a little bit of an assessment so we can do more of the things?
I would say that it's not impossible to consider more, but I think that given the path that we've been on to get some amenities done and the amount of time it's taken to get to even this point and the significant improvements that would be provided by this without requiring us to go out to anybody and ask for an assessment or any of those things, we feel like this is the right thing to do at this time. We think that there's a broad constituency in the island. There are people that use this every day of every week. There are people that have never been here before. There are people that are club members that would have no interest. There are people that don't exercise. So there's all these various constituencies. So when we started talking about this, we ended up here after going through a lot of different thinking about how best to get here. One of the thoughts we had at one point was the idea of figuring out ways to charge a fee for folks to use things to more, that then you could maybe do something more significant, but then have the people that use it more pay that. Well, that was one way to fund a much larger facility, but we felt like that really wasn't in keeping with what we've historically done. So when we balanced all of those things, this is where we came out in general in terms of the criteria we were looking for in the general budget area. So with that, you know, I think we did think about it. And although, you know, if you think about it from a different perspective, it may feel short-sighted. Other people might think, geez, it's a second pool. I mean, there's an argument that that's over the top from people who have a different point of view. So we feel like after having discussed it at length, this is generally a pretty good resolution.
You asked initially, or you mentioned initially that you were on a very, very tight deadline and schedule. Can you be more specific about what that is?
Well, I say that for all my projects. We have, our goal is to try to be permit ready by September so that it doesn't, so that, you know, basically when the slower season starts, we can start construction to minimize the disruption to using the space.
And how long?
I don't know that we defined that 9 months, is that what we said, or 12 months? I have to go back to my notes. That is another thing I did want to bring up. We have not, we don't have a contractor on the team right now. One of the things I did want to point out is on a lot of projects like this, it's very helpful for us to have a general contractor involved early on because we can monitor the pricing. They can help us, you know, go one way or another early on. We don't want to wait till the end. So that's one of the things I wanted to bring up with the board, if that's something that y'all have considered.
Yeah, and another issue is obviously at some point, if we move forward, we're going to have to close this facility for a period of time. And that means that there's a lot of advance notification that needs to happen. I mean, we're not currently accepting reservations for next year in anticipation that there may be a project here. If we were to get delayed, then, you know, we could open reservations back up, but we would like to keep the train moving forward so that we can focus in on exactly when we have to close and when we think we might be able to reopen. And obviously there are going to be some things that happen here on a regular basis that we're going to have to find another home for. For you folks that are here every day of every week for fitness, I mean, we have looked at the possibility of whether or not we may even be able to put up a temporary structure in the parking lot to accommodate those types of uses. So a lot of logistics around those types of things tied to this schedule.
Francis and David and Kelly. Jimmy just answered my question, so that's okay.
Okay, I just want to say that while I agree with Ms. O'Brien, I do think the board is completely right in not bringing up the word assessment again. It would be too divisive, and I am very amazed that they came up with a way to do this without any additional assessment. And I would like to say that I give my complete support to what the board wants to do in this area, commend them, and I say the sooner the better.
Yeah, bravo.
I have a couple of comments. One about the other boardwalk, this one over here. You mentioned the possibility of closing it, or one of the things is I usually come here by bike, like to go out on the beach, have access that way. You can't go through the other one. Nobody wants bicycles going through there, so I think in some way that has to be kept open.
Just to clarify, no closing of the boardwalk, it's just closing of the connection from the boardwalk to the Sandcastle deck. Because now we're going to have a deck that's going to be directly adjacent to it. So we were trying to limit people coming from off that board. The boardwalk would stay. There's no change in the boardwalk.
Come in the front door.
Another comment, if there's going to be traffic control out front, I suggest we use the KICA card as opposed to the stickers. Some people come in with rental cars, or they drive in here with their guests, or a vehicle that doesn't have a sticker on it. So if it's going to be automatic, put the card out like at our Key River Associates. That way, you know, if you don't have a card, you're not going to get in.
Okay.
And if it's going to be constructed with covered funds, is it coming out of reserves? How much reserves will be left? And how are those reserves going to get rebuilt, as we saw what happened with Matthew?
Yeah, so we have not completely determined. One of the things we'll be talking about over the next couple meetings is specifically how we're going to do that. But in general, we have a reserve fund that is geared for long-term assets, and then over time, reserves have built up in an operating fund. And we're going to be using monies that have built up in an operating fund that are not geared towards specific long-term fixed assets. And we're going to be attacking our overall reserve policy as part of this whole discussion. So this won't affect anything as it relates to the long-term reserves for long-term assets.
Nancy, the Maryland.
I think you said that the current town hall, the old town hall, we will be able to be in there in the fall, is that correct? But anyway, are you joining the planning of this with the planning of that, of the new town hall, so that access there could be taken up by what we can't do here when we're under construction?
This is related to this Dave's comments as well as that Dave's comments. It's not all completely determined at this point, but the direction that the board provided was that that we dedicate the bulk of our excess resources to doing something here first. I feel certain that there are going to be some, probably some cosmetic things that need to happen at the town hall once the folks from the town move out of their side of the building, perhaps a new paint, carpet, things of that nature. But I don't foresee us moving walls and things like that at this stage. There are some, obviously the town council chambers seats very comfortably, 80, 90, 100 people for a meeting. I think the meeting that Wendy was referencing from a couple weeks ago had a turnout of about that size. There are also several large conference rooms there that can accommodate small groups. Certainly nothing like this, but we will be able to move some of those groups there.
It seems to me that the meeting room, which can take 85 people, could also take quite a few fitness classes.
I have different comments about the current state of audiovisual equipment and ability to stream here is, well, that's like 1950s. And the rest of it is still pretty backward. In the course of redoing the interiors, besides the thought of putting a television set in our library and conversation area, have you been giving any other thought to updating AV buildings?
Yes.
And where you position screens for the meetings that do happen here?
Well, we don't have the answers yet, but that was one of the things that the staff brought up.
I have a question. We really haven't talked at all about the gym area. We've talked about the aerobics area expanding. It looks to me like the gym area stays pretty much the same as it is now. Is that correct?
Other than the finishes being upgraded, but we haven't.
Yeah. I wanted to simply go on the record as saying the gym is woefully inadequate in its current form, and that there is a serious need for expansion of that gym area. I understand the budget restraints, but just so that we understand the future needs, there is a significant need to increase the size of the gym area.
So it's mostly the size, not the equipment.
Well, yes.
Yes to both. Okay.
I know that there was a show of hands requesting that the adult pool be heated. Is there a possibility that one of the pools can be covered in the winter?
Covered so that you can use it in the winter, obviously.
Yes.
Anything's possible. I think, and this is more of a question for Ian, but I think the pool we're proposing, it's more of a cool-off, dip in, kind of get wet pool, whereas that pool's a more active pool. It's got the laps and you can figure out. The cover is just a structure that you buy. So I think that's something we would just have to consider as another piece of equipment almost. See how we can solve that.
Well, I know there are a number of people who are interested in year-round lap swimming.
Well, we had planned an hour. We're at an hour, but the comments are coming and they're great. And I don't want to shut this down because everybody came out, and I want to keep it open for a little bit longer. But what I'd ask is, if you have suggestions about ideas here that relate to this in particular, not as much about security or access, please let's get them out. But we really have got a meeting coming up, so let's say another 15 minutes. So at 1:15, let's try to shut down. 2:15. Excuse me.
Yes, just to follow up on the heated pool question. A lot of people want the heated pool for a lap swimming experience. And it looks to me on the proposal here that number 8, which is the beach entry, would go completely across the width of the pool, so you could not do a lap turn at that end of the pool.
Right.
And that really doesn't make any sense to have a heated experience so people could do lap swimming and then not have a beach entry where you can't do a flip turn.
Yeah. Well, you can't do a flip turn when you've got a gradual entry, obviously you need a wall. There are things you can put in.
You can put a bulkhead in.
You can, a temporary one or whatever.
But that's not going to happen.
No, and it kind of defeats the purpose. I think what we've sort of, the direction we've gone in is that we have a lap pool now. That's going to be the lap pool, and that this would be a different pool. And the philosophy behind that is if you try to do too many things with something, then they're not as great as they could be. So we want this one to be great for a different type of use and continue using the other one for laps.
So Eddie, let me just chime in one. So I've been working on a couple pools down here, and the expense of heating it all winter is pretty much makes it undoable for almost everyone. Typically, they just extend the season a couple months on either side with their heating, so that it's not a huge, we're heating a freezing body of water every day. But you could also, we could look into a passive solar heating system that would extend the season a couple of months, and maybe we can integrate with this big deck, which is going to be a big solar sink. But that could be a passive system that wouldn't have a huge operating cost every year.
Nobody wants them, we're done.
I don't have a question about it.
Oh, I don't need a mic, you know, I'm not a fun mouth. No, I would just like to suggest, as a former board member and a resident and a fitness instructor here at the Sandcastle Sanctuary, that when y'all get ready to get more suggestions about the fitness room, that you talk to some of the instructors, please.
Okay.
Okay, well, it looks like that's it for the questions and comments. We're going to take a 5-minute break and come back to the board meeting. So thank you very much.